Hello and welcome back. I want to tell you about what I've got to for Easter Sunday. A trip into North Wales, an area I know very well, and even wrote a book about roads and truckways of North Wales, which I'll be mentioning a bit more in this video. Up really early to get to Llandudno West Shore. Preceding Easter had been a few days of glorious blue skies, idyllic weather, but I had to be at work Good Friday, Easter Saturday. Easter Sunday was a compulsory day's annual leave for all, so anyway, I wasn't complaining. The morning looked really lovely again, but the afternoon had cloud coming in from the west. The tide was low at Llandudno, about 7:30, 8:15, Llandudno West Shore. So got there for that time. Llandudno West Shore, the tide goes way out, looking towards Anglesey and the North Wales mountains. Timing it well with the low tide, you can go out so far. And I think it's probably the lowest we'd ever been out walking on the sandbar at Llandudno West Shore. You get a real sense of spaciousness, of the expanse, the grandeur. You look to one side and you've got the North Wales mountains, in front of you Anglesey, off to your right the Great Orme, looking very dragon-like, the Great Worm, the Great Dragon, as the Vikings referred to it. So it's just one of those places where the expanse of physical space increases the sense of mental space and decompression. It's really quite beautiful, quite refreshing and nourishing space to be in. The dog loves it as well, runs for miles and miles. There he does. So we did a big loop out around Llandudno Sandbar West Shore, working it with the tide. So after Llandudno West Shore, it was a drive up to the south side of Caerhun in the mountain pass above Rowen, following the Roman road from Canovium, Caerhun, settlement down in the Conwy Valley. That road went all the way through the mountain pass to Segontium, which is now known as Caernarfon, and there's a Roman fort at Segontium. Back, I think, in 2004, maybe, around about then, there was a time team a chance to do something Roman archaeology, Roman history, and I did a walk in that mountain track above Rowen through the Bulky Vein. I'm sure some of my Welsh watchers, hi, thank you for your pronunciation guidance, will correct me on my pronunciation, but at least I have a go, yeah. I did the walk above Rowen along that route through the Bulky Vein and followed it westwards towards Segontium for a mile or two. And that's pretty much what we ended up doing on Easter Sunday. We drove down to Llanbedr Cennin, if I remember correctly, turn right and wiggle up the road. Off to your left, you've got Penagaya Hill Fort, absolutely stunning up there. And the road takes you eventually down into a dip. You'll see a bridge in front of you, nice arched bridge, kind of like the one you see Postman Pat driving over in his opening titles, if I remember correct. And follow that through and you'll get to a little car park at the end of a single vehicle lane. If you meet somebody coming, you've got to find one of a very few number of places to put in sharp or reverse. In places you can see the course of the Roman road, the Aga, linear markings in the gorse and in the heather, very clear. The first prehistoric remain you'll see, if you look carefully, is Barcladia de Galres, the giantess's apronful. That'll be off to your south on the left-hand side and looks just like a pile of stones. Notice that there's been a much more ingress of overgrowth, so it's beginning to lose some of its definition. Heading westwards, you'll soon see a standing stone on your left-hand side, a big one. And if you look, feel carefully on the eastern side of that, tap with your foot, and there are a number of smaller stones sticking up in a kind of radiating waves back eastwards from it. You won't notice it if you don't go feeling carefully with your foot. Do go careful because it can cause you to stumble. Then you will see from there that there is another standing stone and even a couple more smaller standing stones on the ridge right framed between the pass in front of you. That came up much quicker than I recalled it doing so in the past. I think I've got used to going longer distances since my last visit. So we ended up going further west, following the course of the Roman route towards Segontium, in the direction of Aber and Llanfairfechan. There's a couple places there where you can see the Roman agate beautifully clearly stretching out before you, dropping in images. Eventually you'll come to a large knoll, a large rise in the ground. There are a number of cairns and some standing stones to be seen along that way. Some of the cairns are quite hard to make out, others are very well defined. The motive for going that far west on this walk was to go and see if I could find the arrow stones and sharpening stones on that large raised knoll. Checking with the megalithic portal, there are 3 people suggest. Didn't have time to go looking hard for them, but I did find some, and I don't think they were the ones actually found when I walked it, oh gosh, early 2000s. So it's going to be 2005-ish, I reckon I walked it. Walked back along the track. By this time the day was darkening more and losing its brightness. From there, drove back to the kink in the road before it drops back down towards Llanudno and parked there. Wanted to go and see a lovely dolmen and some standing stones. So walking far down the track in front of you, water does flow over the track even when it's dry in places, so you'll need decent footwear or a change of socks. Went to see Mynibad dolmen. Lovely cromlech, very visible on the skyline as you look across the mountainside. Slightly to the northeast from there is another chambered tomb, but very much like a kist, and it faces, the actual entrance to it faces east. You can go and curl up in there and have a very cozy few minutes. But it's very flush with the ground, so unless you go looking for it, unless you know it's there, you probably won't actually ever come across it. There is a really decent sized hawthorn, perhaps a blackthorn. Use that as a point of reference, and then you will see the aperture for the chambered tomb. Really cool vibe there. Along the track you'll see Fon Ikawa, the giant spear, a number of circular homesteads. There's the Kai Koch Menhir, which would be the first one along the track if you've parked on that bend. And there is an incised stone with a cross upon it. I'd forgotten how far up the track that was, so I was looking in the wrong place for it, but I do mention that in my book. So have a look at the strip map, which is in my book, and you'll see the whole sequence of ancient sites along the course of the Romanized road. The Romans weren't the first to get the idea that the quickest way between A and B is a straight line where it wasn't otherwise impossible. And the sheer density of prehistoric monuments along this route just shows that, yeah, this was in use as a route long before the Romans came. So that was my Easter Sunday. The day did become a lot grayer, but we were at a point where we were satisfied with what we'd done. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed, please do subscribe, and I look forward to catching you again soon. Take care.